What's up, guys? Today we're playing Epic 7, and today we're going to be reviewing the heroes in the second selection summons. This special summons banner appears after you beat an episode number 3, and every hero on the list is a good choice. They're all pretty meta and useful in one or more aspects of the game. This makes it very hard to determine which hero you want, but it does not expire, so there's no rush if you're torn between two favorites. Now, we went over how Selective Summons works in our first video. If you missed it, I'll put a link in the description so you can go back and refresh yourself on that. Thank you guys so much for watching. Subscribe to my channel for future videos and giveaways, and give me a like so other people just like you can find it as well. Now, let's go ahead. We're going to get started and go in and look at the heroes that are available to us. As we go into our banner list, we see Selective Summons as a banner right here. And what we want to do is click this little eye. This is going to give you information about the Selective Summons. Each time you roll this, it's going to give you one 5-star hero or a 5-star artifact. It's also going to give you 2 each 4-star heroes and 4-star artifacts. As many times as I re-rolled this, I did not see more than 1 5-star and 4 4-stars. So don't keep rolling thinking that you're going to get super lucky. Everything else is going to be a 3-star. Now, as we go in, we want to make sure that we're getting a 5-star hero, not a 5-star artifact. These are not going to be game breaking for you, and they're not going to take you to the next level to help you beat the next content. We want to make sure we get a hero that's going to help us either in PvP or in PvE, depending on, where your focus is at. Now, as we go down into the 4-star heroes, I have a couple of recommendations that I think will work really well. For me, I think that Rose works pretty well as a tank for your Wyvern team. She also will work well into your tank that you need for your Fire Expedition. Acades is a very good healer that you can use into your Nightmare raid. She's also very good into Guild Wars. Sid, very good as well, although late game PvP, he's a speed imprint, so if you're trying to take that first turn, then Sid is a very nice hero to have. He also hits super hard. And then we see Shuri here. Shuri is amazing at controlling CR and is really going to boost you up in a lot of things like Abyss or even into Expeditions. When we go over to the 4-star artifacts, Aureus is going to be the #1 thing that you're going to want. If you haven't gotten a copy by now, you definitely want one, because that's going to help you to keep your other heroes alive. Also, I like Tagahel's Ancient Book. This one is very popular for pretty much any mage that you have. That way you get some souls when you're going into PvP, or even if you're going into Abyss and you want to front load some of those soul burns, then Tagahel's Ancient Book is really good. Everything else I think that you can get as you go. Some of them are very good, but nothing that you're really going to need going forward to help take you into that new content, right? So if you can get one or both of those, and I think it's very good, anything else will be fine as well. They're all useful for something, so don't worry too much about these 4-star artifacts. But if you can, Aureus, Tagahel's Ancient Book, very nice artifacts to have. Today, we're starting off with the fire heroes, and we have Bomb Model Canna. Now, I don't want you to select Bomb Model from the Selective Summons because she's free in your connections once you go through episode number 3, so make sure you get her from there instead. She's very useful when you get into the Earth Expedition. That's primarily because she can hit 2 targets with her S1, making it very good to kill both the crystal and the boss at the same time. Her exclusive equipment doesn't make too much difference. I'm using the #2, but I think any one of these will work. Unfortunately, she's not very usable in PvE or PvP because she doesn't fulfill a slot that we need no matter what kind of strategy that you're trying to use. Still, I had her built for the Fire Expo, and she does really well on some very basic gear to score really high. You can get 1,000,000 points without too much trouble at all. And next up, we have Ilinab, who is going to be a damage-based knight. What's amazing about her is that she's HP-based, so she uses some different equipment than some of your other attackers. She also applies injuries on her S3 and also onto her S2. Now, this only applies to other heroes, but you're going to reduce the maximum amount of HP that they have, and thereby reducing the amount of damage they can do or making them easier to kill. She's quite fun to use, especially if you go get her exclusive equipment to do the number 3, giving her more combat readiness. That way she can S3 into S2 right away and really drop down a high priority target. If you were to use this on someone like, let's say, Apocalypse Ravi, then you can take her from 27,000 HP down below 20,000, making her hit much less hard and also making her easier to kill. Now, I consider her to be somewhat similar to an Alencia. They fill a similar role, but she's going to be fire. Now, in Epic 7, we have a majority ice meta, which means that fire heroes aren't as easy to use because there are so many amazing ice heroes like Shu or Seaside Bologna or any number of heroes that are going to hard counter her. Still, she's going to be really fun. Some people that are really PvP focused who are having trouble with a enemy team that has a lot of HP that you're not able to kill, like a Apocalypse Ravi, might consider Ilanav. I do think Alencia is a better choice, but she is a solid choice as well. And now we come to Politis, who is a PvP focused mage. You're going to utilize her in things like Arena, RTA, and maybe even Guild War. She's purely offensive and she counters heroes that use non skill attacks. What's going to happen is they use a non skill attack, she activates her passive ability, takes down their immunity, knocks them back, pushes herself up, and now she's going to take the next turn. She's also a mage, so she can carry her own book. You can soul burn onto her S1, granting her an extra turn that resets her passive ability and allows her to come in and do an S3, which does hit pretty hard, and it has a 100% chance to land these debuffs, which can be crippling into something like an RTA when they have no cleanser. If you ask me, I think that she's almost necessary for RTA to combat a lot of the enemy's strategy. So if you're someone who wants to play into an aggro style, if you want to play into a counter cleave style, then Politis is going to be very good for you. Although she has creepy dolls, and this might trigger some of your PTSD as from a kid and watching horror movies, so keep that in mind before you select her. And our last fire hero is going to be Cecilia. She is absolutely amazing into a ton of content, and she has a very high base speed, which makes her easy to build. Now, you can utilize her in PvP as a disruptor. You can also utilize her in PvE to drop a ton of debuffs. Both her S3 and her S2 are going to be AoE abilities. Her S3 has a 100% chance to provoke, which is really nice into that first turn PvP. Also, it grants immunity to all allies, which is very, very important. Onto her S number 2, we have a 100% chance to decrease attack, helping you to mitigate some of the damage coming off bosses or even into PvP. She also dispels one buff, which is good to remove a shield or even immunity. Now, her S1 has a 50% chance to decrease defense for 2 turns and a decrease attack. Very, very nice here because it makes you, gives you the freedom now to have her as a secondary defense breaker. If one of your defense breakers gets resisted, now she can come in. She has a potential to defense break, helping you to do more damage. Also, because it's 2 turn, this makes it very easy in case you get 15%ed to keep up a defense break on the enemy. If we look at our exclusive equipment, the number 2 decrease speed onto that number S number 2. Very, very good. This will help you to lap and take more turns in the expedition. I utilize her onto light and also dark and also earth, and she is best in slot night for those expeditions. Now, if you're going to utilize her mostly for PvP, having unhealable is very nice as well, although you might want to use decreased speed for both. That way you can lap, take more turns, and also get all of your heroes to take a turn before the enemy really takes a turn. Overall, she's a very high on my list of heroes to get, useful in just all kinds of content, and a staple in almost all of my teams. And next up, we have Shu. If you don't know who this is, and you must not PvP a lot, she is absolutely everywhere. You're going to get to a point where she's going to 1v4 your entire team. She's super fun to use as long as you have it on mute because the voice lines are a little bit annoying. Now, what she does is her S3 is absolutely stacked. She's going to have an AoE attack with crit hit resistance, give herself immunity, and when it's on cooldown, has a 20% chance to counter attack. This does not stack with counter set, but it'll give you two different checks to be able to counter attack. Now, onto her S number two, big hit that penetrates by 70% when your focus is full. It's not going to reset the cooldown, which means you can use it again next turn. Onto her S1, it's not amazing until you come into her exclusive equipment. If we have the number one, a critical hit with Chop, 40% chance to activate your S2, which does a ton of damage. In my opinion, this is the only exclusive equipment you want to use because this gives her the ability to really crush the enemy and do just a ton of damage. It's not uncommon to see a shoe hit for, 10,000, then 10,000 again, and completely take you from full down to zero. It's also very good. Her exclusive equipment gives you up to 10 speed, which is amazing. Now, what you want to do with her is, in my opinion, you want to build her onto a counter set. You don't necessarily need to have penetration because she already has a big pen onto her S number two, and all you're really going to get is a little bit of pen onto her S1. Instead, build her at 23 to 25,000 onto health. Give her plenty of defense, plenty of crit hit and crit chance, and she's going to do just some crazy things for you. Really fun if you like that bruiser style. Definitely a good choice for anyone who wants to PvP. And next we come to Ida. She is going to be a PvP focus hero, and very specifically a cleave type hero. When we look at her S number 3, she's going to gain a 20% combat readiness when an ally uses a non-skill attack. This means you can build her somewhat slow, around about 230 speed or so. She's going to jump ahead when your hero goes and hopefully take that second turn. Now she's going to be able to hit everyone to spell two buffs and decrease her combat readiness. Because she's a mage, she can bring in Book, Soulburn, take the extra turn, then do an S3 hitting everyone with what looks like to be an 85% chance to stun. Very disruptive hero and very fun to use. She's going to be a hero that's going to take a lot of gear, not necessarily for her, but for your other team. For everyone to work, you must take that first turn, you must be able to do a non-skill attack, and then you must have all of your heroes timed to where she goes next, next one goes, and now you kill everyone. So if this is your style, if this is what you want to get into, if you want to farm Wyvern for the rest of your life, to take that first turn and to just murder everyone, Ida, very fun hero to use, and I think that she does really well into that cleave style. Not a lot of ice heroes in the selective summons, and next we come up to Flan. Now she's going to be a PvP focused hero, but you can also use her into PvE toward the end game for certain types of events. She's what I call an enabler, which means that she's going to give you combat readiness for a slower hero that you can build to be very hard hitting, and now you can really plan out your attack strategy by allowing you to boost up that hero to do a lot of damage. When her S3 goes off, it's a non-attack skill, which means it can be resisted, but it cannot be dodged. She has unhealable and decreased defense, and a decreased combat readiness. What you don't see here is that she's not able to remove buffs. So if the enemy comes in with something like a immunity, she's not going to be able to take full advantage of this S3. But if you do a soul burn, you can do an S3 into an S2 combo. Her S2 encourages an ally, giving them 50% attack and 50% more crit damage, and a 40% increase in their combat readiness. So now you can build heroes at like 180 speed with a ton of damage. When you look at our exclusive equipment, you get an extra 10% if you pick the number 2, which is very good, and you get some more effectiveness, which is going to be important. There are some crazy flans out there. 300 plus speed flan, People swear by her, especially into RTA. Now, that kind of gear is going to take a very long time to build, but you can still utilize her into a ton of content. You're going to want to have to go first into a lot of the heroes that you're going to be facing. So maybe this is more of an end game type of hero to use. Still, she's going to be very, very effective if you want to take that first turn and if you want to have that style where you're bringing up a hero who does a ton of damage and then trying to knock everyone out in that first turn. I like Flan. She's very, very useful. So this is a good hero to consider as well. Starting off our Earth heroes, we have Mort. He's a damage based knight, and they just shoved as much things as they possibly could into his kit. If we look at his passive ability, immune to stun and sleep with a 30% chance to counter attack, and if he gets a critical hit with his S1, he's going to buff himself. If we look at his S3, he's going to hit everyone, inflicting injuries, recovering his health, and giving himself a buff. And onto his S number 1, 50% chance to decrease defense for 2 turns, and ignore effect resist when he's enraged. Super, super nice. You can build him a ton of ways, either onto a counter build or maybe even onto a speed build. Some of the problems that we have with Mort is he doesn't inflict enough injuries to be useful as an injury based knight like Ilanav or even someone like Alencia. He doesn't do enough damage being an AoE attacker for a cleave, but I have been completely nuked by endgame Mort, so he can be really fun for that. I don't recommend him here because to get to that end game Mort is going to take just a ton of gear that you probably don't have when you're doing the second selective summons. Now we come to Senya, who's going to be another attacking based knight who can also protect the team. If you've done any kind of PvP, she's super, super meta and she can completely control the field. When we look at her passive ability, she gets 30% increased amount of attack but cannot crit hit. This means that you can build her 5k attack no problem. Also, she has built-in critical hit resistance, and when she doesn't take a crit hit, then now the damage is going to get reflected back to the attacker. Also, she's going to activate her own buffs for the team, including a very, very small barrier and increased speed for everyone. On to her S number 3, she has a blind debuff, which is amazing in PvP. She also has a chance to provoke, and she has a counter-attacking stance for 3 turns. If you soul burn this, you can literally keep up her counter-attacking forever as long as they don't remove it. On to her S1, 100% chance to provoke when she counterattacks, and she lands it when it's not her turn. So this is very, very important because you can build her a number of ways. You can build her really high resistance, and now she can't get that counterattacking removed. You can also build her really high effectiveness, and she'll control the whole enemy team and whittle them down counter after counter after counter. I've taken in heroes that were 150 effect resist just to lose because I can't beat this stupid Senya. So she's very, very fun. Onto her exclusive equipment, she does have a small heal onto her S1. She has a barrier as well. I don't recommend either of these two because the healing is not enough and the barrier is not enough to make a difference. I would go with the number 3, granting her a greater attack. That's going to be very, very good for you to do a lot of damage back to the attacker once you get into a rhythm of provoking after provoke after provoke. She's a hero who can change the whole battlefield just by being there, which is really, really fun to see and very fun to play. And now we come to Euphine, who was my very first natural 5-star hero. She used to be very good in things like Expedition and Hunt, but they changed her in one of the balance patches to make her more PvP focused and increase her utilization. Now, what she does is her S number 2 is an AoE who tries to dispel a buff, tries to silence, and then gives herself attack and defense. Onto her S number 3, if the target is silenced, increase her combat readiness, so hopefully she cuts. Now she can S3, penetrate by 70%, and when you get a kill, cooldown does not occur, which means you can do S3 again on her next turn. Now, the best part about her is she doesn't even have to apply the silence. You can bring someone else, someone like a Zio. He applies a silence, it boosts her up, now she takes another turn. If we look at our exclusive equipment, we don't really need to have the S1 exclusive equipment because most of the time, what you're going to be doing is you are going to be doing S3 after S3. In my opinion, what you do is you take the number 3, this will increase your silence chance to 100%, and hopefully you get the combo. Now, the problem that she has is she can be 15%ed, which means that you cannot ignore effect resist. You don't land the silence, and then her S3 is not very effective. The other thing is after you kill someone, you need someone else to now to raise up her combat readiness so she takes the next turn and hopefully can kill someone else. If you only land one silence and they kill you, well, now you're stuck with Zio and maybe auxiliary Lots or Flan, and it's not such a good combo. There have been plenty of times where I used her and she absolutely did not work. So, in my opinion, Sirmia does a much better job if you're going into the light expedition. But Euphine can still be used into the Banshee, although she's not very good at it. So, I don't recommend pulling her here, even though she's kind of fun and a cool looking hero. Two heroes left to go, and that brings us to Ervelyn. Now, Ervelyn can be used into PvP and also PvE. When we look at his S number 3, he's going to do big damage because he does the difference of his max HP and the enemy max HP. This means that in PvP, you can really come in, destroy a tank or a soul weaver, adopt counter-attacking stance, extend it by another turn when you get the kill, grant him an extra turn. Now he can come in and hopefully do more damage. Into PvE, you can utilize him into Banshee, and he might be the very first hero with the capability to one-shot Banshee that you encounter. In my opinion, that Baiken is the best hero for one-shot Banshee, but not everyone's going to have access to her because she's a collaboration. So this might be the very first hero. If you're very serious about Banshee, Ervelyn is probably a good choice. Also, if you're having a ton of problems with a lot of the very, very tanky heroes into PvP, then you can probably utilize him on a similar build with a different artifact to now take him into doing PvP. Although I think that he's best going to be for that Banshee. And so if that's something you're serious about, Ervelyn, good choice here. And our last hero today is going to be Alencia, who is an amazing hero into a lot of the meta. First thing is that she's Earth, and we have a big water meta right now. Also, she has a ton of injury, which makes her good against Bruiser meta, which is also popular right now. If we look at her S number 3, she's going to hit all enemies, dispelling buffs and giving defense buff to everyone. Also increasing her combat readiness, which is good because then she can take that next turn a little sooner. Onto her S1, she has a 80 was that 75% chance to decrease defense for one turn. If you soul burn, now it's 2 turns, and this is very, very important because when it's her turn, she grants herself Mind's Eye, which increases her effectiveness. Now, when she has Mind's Eye and does an S1, she's going to activate another skill called Trample, inflicting injuries. If you put her with injury set and pen set, she's going to do a ton of injuries because not only is she going to have injury on her S1, but the injury stacks on her S2, which means that you can take something like a 27,000 HP A Ravi down to like 18,000 in just one turn. She's absolutely fantastic for that A Ravi counter. And a lot of you who cannot counter A Ravi, she's going to be an important hero for you until you get other heroes that are going to be better, like Savior Aiden or Straws or something like that. If we look at her exclusive equipment, she has some pretty good ones. Her S1 has a healing, which isn't bad. One time I went into Guild War, I wasn't anticipating this, and she completely soloed me because I didn't do enough damage in order to wipe out the healing. This is not my first choice. In my opinion, having the increased amount onto the S number 2 is going to be the best choice because now you can inflict even more injuries and maybe even wipe someone out with that S1 triggering S2. Her exclusive equipment has a crit chance, which is very, very good. because now it's going to help you to build her a little bit easier. She's a very good hero into this meta, especially if you're having trouble with those heroes who maybe heal themselves or have a ton of HP and you're not able to do enough damage in order to kill them. Mainly a Ravi, that's what I use her for, and she's fantastic into a Ravi. But again, she's a bruiser style, so you have to want to play that bruiser meta. And now comes the time for recommendations. It's hard because all these heroes are very useful, unlike the first selected summons, where you had to focus on maybe the top 3 heroes and that was it. For people serious about PvE, I think you have to choose Cecilia. She is an amazing hero. Ras is good, but Cecilia is in another league. She'll help you break into a lot of the content that you're not doing. If you're doing okay in expeditions, she's going to take you and double your damage. If you want to break into Hell Raid, she's going to help you with that. If you want to break into Nightmare, she's going to help you with that too. Very, very good hero. If you want to focus on Banshee, I think you have to pick Evelyn to build that one shot along with the free Vivian. He's going to be really the only hero that you can do it. When you are going up from Banshee to 12, like from 1 to 12, you can use just your Wyvern team. Once you get to there, then you're going to want to have some Earth heroes to be able to consistently beat it and beat it faster, and Evelyn's going to help you with that. If you want to do good into Guild War and Arena, I think Alencia, Shu, and Senya are good choices. Alencia and Shu fill that role of big damage. I think Shu is better for most gameplay, but Alencia is better in something like a Ravi, who can be a big barrier and very popular on defenses. Senya is also good and fun hero to use. She's great into a standard style where you're bringing her as your damage dealer, maybe some more mitigation, and then you're bringing in a Soul Weaver to keep you all alive. She can literally control a whole fight. Very, very fun, especially when your enemy doesn't have any kind of healing. If you want to succeed in RTA, I think that you should consider Politis or Flan. Now, they're two very different heroes. Politis is more anti cleave, and Flan is more first turn style, but they're both really good. If you ask me, Flan is harder to build because she needs more gear. To work with most of the styles you're using for Flan, you need to build her up into like the 270 to 300 range, depending on where you are in RTA. She's not the best hero to use in a lot of the arena because you often see heroes that punish you for using non-skill attacks. But still, she's going to be very useful as long as you have the gear to hit hard and to take that first turn and cripple the enemy defense. With all of these good heroes, maybe what you want to do is sit on your selected summons for a little while. It's not going to expire, and maybe you get a lucky pull from your elemental summons, or an event prize, or your covenant summon, something like that. You probably don't have the gear to use them right away anyway, so there's no rush to take your selected summons when you can take your time and make a very good choice later on. Assuming that you're going to play Epic 7 for a while, you're going to get all these heroes eventually, so pick the one that's going to make the most impact for your game and to break into that next content that you really want to go into. Thank you guys so much for watching. Give me a like so other people just like you can find it as well. Until next time, happy hunting and good luck on your battles.